Greetings from Money 2020 here in Amsterdam. This morning I'm joined by KS. KS is with Intellect Global Consumer Banking, and he is their regional head, United Kingdom and Europe. KS, good morning and thank you for your time.
Good morning, Andrew, and pleasure to have you at our booth at Money 2020.
Could you tell us a little about the company's history, where you've come from, what you do, and who are your clients?
Absolutely. I've been with the company Intellect Design and its former avatar, Polaris Software, for about 20 plus years. So Intellect is it's a global company headquartered in India, listed in India, that has historically been working with banking and financial services globally. And our pedigree is in the space of banking and financial services. And we started off way back in 1985-86.
Yes.
Then eventually in 2014, Intellect was carved out of the parent company Polaris, and Polaris was kind of sold off being a traditional services company. And since then, Intellect Design is one among those very few companies that has built a very strong repertoire in the areas of banking and financial services. Essentially, we have solutions that can cater to the requirements of any universal bank, be it global banks, state level banks, community banks, credit unions, non-banking financial companies. Now, as a universal bank would have, you have a consumer banking part of the business, you have a transaction banking part of the business, you have wealth, you have treasury, so on and so forth.
Yes.
iGCB stands for Global Consumer Banking Business, and it's one of those major business streams of Intellect Design. And you have other business streams like Global Transaction Banking, Intellect.ai, which is focused on wealth and artificial intelligence oriented initiatives, hyper automation oriented initiatives. At Money 2020, considering that the flavor of Money 2020 is around payments, we wanted to leverage this event to talk more about the global consumer banking line of business, of which I am their divisional president and the region head for Europe and UK. And that's why we are here, because this is the first time that we are participating in such an event. Although Intellect has a formidable presence in Europe and UK over the last 15 years.
Yes. Now, let's assume for the sake of argument that I am the head of the consumer banking part of a big European universal bank.
Yes.
And I've arrived at your excellent stand here.
Yes.
What is it that you offer me? Is it an entire core banking solution for a consumer banking business, or
Yes.
is it something else?
Look, you're spot on. What we have realized is that Europe is undergoing a major transformation. The transformation is driven by two things. One is the ability of a provider who can actually provide them with a future-proof, focused architecture. I would say with a heavy focus on next-generation architecture.
Yes.
Now, it's one part of the story to have a provider to have a next-generation architecture. What makes it even more compelling is when you're able to offer them with substantive knowledge and understanding of banking itself.
Yes.
The understanding of domain. So what we have today here is when a bank walks in here, today we have the ability to talk to them about our next generation, arguably the largest global finance platform, which is what we call as eMAC.ai.
Yes.
And what eMAC.ai does is, it gives the opportunity for, a traditional bank in these markets, which has, legacy infrastructure. And if they are in a position to modernize and they are wanting to modernize their legacy infrastructure, we have the ability to offer this open finance platform that's future-proof. That's the point number one. In addition, we also believe that today's banking is not just about having a monolith solution. It's not about a bank wanting to do a limited business
Yes.
with their customers. The bank's priorities are changing because the customer priorities are changing.
Yes.
They're facing two kinds of challenges. On one hand, they're facing regulatory challenges. On the other hand, they are kind of trying to catch up with customer demands.
Right.
Now, not all banks can offer all products. So the ability for a bank to actually drive a lot more customer-centric behavior calls for the ability for the banks to offer them more than conventional banking
Yes.
products. And that makes me talk about the power of having a strong ecosystem. And The eMAG.ai platform also enables the ability for banks to actually collaborate in the marketplace and be able to offer a lot more compelling products to their customers. eMAG.ai is essentially a foundational architecture. For the last few years, we made substantial investments in this platform to do two things. One is, be able to offer these to large banks, and we also have as a platform.
Yes.
And then we also, considering that we are a global company, Andrew, we also have to cater to banks that may not want to take a platform approach, and they may still want to go a traditional way,
yes,
have a little bit more control over their destiny. So we also have a product flavor. But the underlying architectural framework is what we call as the eMAG.ai.
Yes.
What it essentially really means is that it's events driven, then it is all about microservices.
Yes.
And we have approached this from an angle of API first and cloud native, and importantly it is headless, which makes it the ability for it to kind of have conversations with external players.
Yes.
And then most important of all is have embedded AI. So what we also have realized is that we have to introduce hyper automation elements within the banking processes. Say for instance, in the case of customer onboarding, or in the case of processing any lending applications, the ability for the bank to reduce the friction between the customer and the bank, which means the ability to turn out things much faster, your ability to turn things much faster, be able to service the customer requests much faster. So we have introduced hyper-automation capabilities as part of the architecture, foundational architecture.
So if I could summarize at this stage, your solution is cloud-based, so it's scalable.
Cloud-based.
It embeds AI.
It embeds AI.
It's super flexible, which means that
it
caters not just to a single institution, but the entire ecosystem.
Absolutely.
It helps banks improve their customer experience. That is to say, the experience of their customers and clients.
Yes.
And it's proven, given that you are well established in India and as a corporate group, have strong relationships with banks around the world.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, I understand that you've made an announcement about a new platform here in Europe. Could you say a little about that, please?
Yes. So, you have summarized it quite beautifully. There's one thing which I wish to add is, if you look at, we're talking about the ability for us to create a signature bank.
Yes.
What it really means is that one must be able to compose a solution. So we have what is called a very powerful layer called the iTurmeric.
Yes.
Which is a foundational layer for the eMAG.ai platform that has the ability to compose a specific solution to whatever extent that the customer wants. Now that has caught on very well. So in addition to what you just said, composability has come out to be a very important theme that we have witnessed in all our conversations with many of these banks, as well as the analysts who came and spent some time with us, the Gartners and AITs and Celents of the world. Now to your specific question, we wanted to use this opportunity to actually launch this eMAG.ai platform.
Yes.
So we did a launch of this platform in India. As I said to you, at a company level, we have about 260 odd customers globally.
Yes.
And we launched eMAG.ai with the specific focus on credit, where the ability of any bank would be to offer curated lending products.
Yes.
So we launched that in India, and that was very well received. Then in April, we did a launch in London. And considering UK and Europe are two distinct markets.
Absolutely.
So we didn't want to mess around with Europe and saying that the launch is for UK and Europe. We said we should specifically launch eMAG.ai in Europe. And what better platform than Money20 to launch this?
Correct.
And this comes on the heel of a very important customer acquisition that took place about 3 weeks ago. So where we got into an engagement with the largest bank in Hungary, OTP, where we are actually going to be deploying, leveraging this platform for their core banking modernization, for the legacy infrastructure modernization, cutting across product lines, beyond the conventional core banking product lines into lending, a lot more of lending. So So to us, this was a great forum for us. And in terms of timing, we feel that the biggest struggle for institutions in Europe would be to work with a partner that brings in capabilities, that understands the business, which is the domain, and also brings in the next generation foundational architecture that can support their aspirations over the next 15, 20 years.
In other words, banks in Europe are waking up to the tough new reality. Customer experience really matters.
Absolutely.
It's not enough to keep the regulators happy, to keep the investors happy,
Correct.
and to keep the staff happy. The customers really matter, and you are helping them improve their customer experience.
Absolutely.